behalf of the Progressive Senate Group, I want to associate ourselves with all of the comments made thus far. Mark, it's a hard act to conclude, but I'm going to reflect a little bit on Lord Peter Hennessy, who's both a friend and a well-noted historian who's written the book on British machinery of government, parliament practices, etc. And he coined the phrase hidden wiring. In fact, he wrote a book called The Hidden Wiring, which was all about how governments work behind the scenes and what connections there are that you don't see, which are essential for success. And I reflected that many people have talked about your role as the representative of the government to the Senate. I want to take a few minutes to talk about the hidden wiring of representing the Senate to the government. That is you refer to it as the whisperer. I'm making it a machinery of government issue. And I think it's important for us to recall, what do we mean by that? We would not have had the Parliament of Canada Act amendments without the representative of the Senate to the government impressing upon the government the importance of the Parliament of Canada Act amendments and getting the Minister of Finance to include the necessary matters that were in the budget. Also in 2003, the Senate was asked quickly to pass C-12 on the old age supplement, if you recall. To avoid additional delay, Senator Gold promised to this chamber that technical amendments that would address errors that had been introduced in the Old Age Security Act would be addressed in the earliest future legislative opportunity. The fix was included in the BIA shortly thereafter. We trusted you to deliver the message to the Senate, to the government. We were asked to pass Bill C-13 on official languages, even though it contained a drafting error. Senator Gold gave us his word that it would be fixed at the earliest legislative opportunity. We trusted him, and again, behind the scenes, he worked to deliver the goods. Finally, on Bill C-11, the Online Streaming Act, the government asked the Senate to accept the House's rejection of one of its most critical amendments, one that would have scoped out user-generated content from Bill C-11. Senator Gold made us a promise that we would appropriately scope out digital-first creators and user-generated content from C-11 through the policy directive process following royal assent. But he went even further, this time playing out his role representing the Senate to the government in the open by including the following language in the GRO's proposed message back to the House, and I want to quote it, that the Senate take note of the Government of Canada's stated intent that Bill C-11 will not apply to user-generated digital content and its commitment to issue policy directive to the CRTC. In his remarks, Senator Gold stated, the message we would send to the other place with this motion is that we in the Senate will be watching the government's next steps carefully with the expectation that they be consistent with the promises they have made and that I have repeated to you in this chamber. In other words, the hidden wiring of our institutional relationship is represented not just by the government representative to the Senate, by the Senate's representative to the government. I want to go back to Peter Hennessy again, because he also had another well-coined phrase that he adopted several times in his history, and he talked about the good chap theory of government. Now, I'm sure that he meant it as a general gender-neutral word, but a good chap knows what a good chap has to do and doesn't need to be told. Senator Gold, you're a good chap.